Hello, it's Sam from WonderFil, and today I'm going to be going over threading on different types of machines. So this is going to give you an idea at home, maybe something similar to your own machine, and you might want to know how to thread it. You can kind of relate that to this video, or if you're looking for a machine to kind of get started, or for more of an expert, what some of those machines could look like, or what some of the differences might be between them. Let's get started. The first machine that we're going to thread today is the B05 Academy. This is a bernette machine, which is great for beginners, and that is why this is the first machine I'm going to show you. You can start with your thread facing two different ways on the machine. You can put your thread on the horizontal spool pin here, or you can put it on the vertical spool pin. And depending on your spool, say it's bigger than this, obviously you'd need to use the vertical spool pin. In this case, it would fit either way. Most machines will also come with different accessories to hold this on. So this is kind of like a little clip just so that it doesn't dangle around. And if you had kind of more of a shorter, stubbier spool, you can use this spool cap to kind of keep that on as well. It just kind of keeps it from flopping around or flying off of this. I usually prefer the vertical spool pin, and if you're doing a lot of sewing, you would typically have a bigger spool potentially. And I like being able to see if my thread's gonna have any issues. So from face on, you can get like a really good view of your thread here. If you wanna use additional tools, we have some, and usually it fits a little bit better when you have it vertical. So I'm gonna put this on my vertical spool pin. In your manual, it will have a very in-depth, step-by-step process on how to thread your machine. So this video may not pertain to you. If you have a completely different machine, definitely best to just check this. Although most machines are pretty standard. Again, this machine specifically and the bernette are very nice because it's gonna give you a lot of step-by-step with the arrows and diagrams and such on this machine, which is very helpful. So I'm gonna show you first how you would wind a bobbin on the top of your machine. So the bobbin is gonna be this dotted arrow. What we're gonna do is we're gonna pop it in here and we're gonna wind it around this disc up here. Then we're gonna bring it over to the bobbin winder. Again, this continues the dotted line here. You're gonna follow this diagram, and using your little punched out hole on your bobbin, you're actually just gonna stick that through the top like this. Then when you put it on here, your machine would be on. When you flick this to the side, sometimes your machine might start winding it automatically when you flip it to the side, and some machines you press down on the foot pedal and it will fill this for you. You can let this go obviously after a minute and it'll kind of knot back in on itself. This little tool here, this will stop the bobbin from overfilling, so it'll just fill you the perfect amount of thread. But you can also fill it to whatever amount that you want for your project. So if you know you're just gonna stitch a little bit, then you can just fill it a little bit, then it's less to unwind later. Now we are going to start threading this for sewing it. So this is considered your top thread. We are going to follow the solid arrows on the machine. Again, following your diagram on your manual. I'm gonna go through these little loops. And then it shows going back around this guide. And you can see here, there's a solid arrow. So I'm going to continue down. And most machines will have this, it's kind of like a down and up. And then like this, again, it will be down and up around this hook. So we just went down and around following these arrows. And now I'm coming down. And on this machine, there's this metal hook. This is just kind of like a pretty low-key guide to kind of hold this in, just in place for you to kind of get this to your needle. So there's another one here behind, and most machines might have this. It's kind of like a hidden thing. I think if you look in your manual, again, it will tell you, but there's also typically a little metal hook attached to your needle bar. So this whole thing is like your needle, and right above that, there's actually like a little, if you can get it, a little metal hook that will also kind of keep a little bit more clearance to your needle. So look for, on your machine, on your needle bar, a little metal hook that can kind of keep the thread a little bit more contained before you thread it. Then for actually threading your needle, there's obviously a few options. The classic would be to go in just with your fingers and try to stick it in the hole. You need some maybe good glasses, depending. Sometimes it seems like you got it, but you didn't. There's also this nifty little gadget, the needle threader. So you can look at your manual. Most machines would probably have this as well. So a needle threader just kind of helps guide the thread into the needle hole instead. So I'm just using my tweezers to guide it in instead of my fingers. And you can grab that pretty easily from the back and just pull it through. So on this type of machine, this needle gets threaded from front to back. So if you have a more industrial style machine, it might actually thread from side to side, usually left to right. So please pay attention to that. First of all, in your manual, I'm gonna sound like a broken record, but that's the best place to look if you're beginning. So on your machine, your presser foot sometimes just automatically stays down. Sometimes it might stay up. It kind of depends. Like this is a manual one, so putting it up and down, I can change that. So for this machine right now, the presser foot is down. You can change this out for your project, and now would be the perfect time to do that when you've just finished doing the top thread. There is a screw on the side. You can just unscrew it and pop a new one on. For anybody that's more of a beginner, this is a finger guard, so it kind of protects you a little bit from getting your fingers too close to the needle because you do not want to sew through your hand. So this is a little bit of extra protection, but if you're a little bit more of an expert, you can switch it out to a foot that doesn't have this or something more specific to your project. So I'm going to use the lever on the back of the machine to lift the presser foot. I'm going to pull this down just so it's kind of sitting where it's going to sew through in my presser foot. If you have a presser foot that just has like a hole or something, you might want to guide it through there, but it's definitely not mandatory, just to kind of avoid any knotting. So once we've popped off this plastic cover, then we have our bobbin that we wound earlier. A little side note that your bobbin thread and your top thread do traditionally match in color, and most people will just wind with the thread that they're using on the top. But a little side note, we'll get more into this later on in the channel, but thread can play a huge part in your project, and you do not necessarily need the bobbin thread to be matching exactly on the top. So stay tuned for that. We are going to drop the bobbin in. So this is called a drop-in bobbin case, and we're just gonna pop that in. So if you hold the thread pretty taut with your hand and you follow the arrows, it should click into place. We're gonna follow this arrow here, and that clicked in. And then this little roundabout arrow here, this is just a cutter. So this is gonna cut your bobbin tail just to the perfect length. Not all machines will have this, but it is kind of nice. So I'm just gonna cut the end, and you can discard this piece. Now your bobbin is ready to go. And what we're gonna do to pull that thread up from this section is we're going to hold the needle thread or the top thread taut. So just get a grip on that. We're gonna use the right hand wheel, and we're gonna pull that towards us. When I pull it towards us, the needle's just gonna go up and down. And when it goes down, it's going to grab on to the bobbin thread. And then we have the bobbin thread that's come out. And we can just pull that out a little bit. And now we have both of the threads coming out. This area is nice and clear now. The thread has been pulled through. So we're just gonna pop this little cover back on. And now you're ready to start sewing. Our next machine that we're gonna thread is the B08 straight stitch. So this is another bernette machine. Again, great for beginners, but this machine specifically is, like it says in the title, a straight stitch machine. So straight stitch is also really good for somebody that's an expert as well. And if you know anything about straight stitch or industrial machines, they are usually large, they are built into a table. So this bernette is a fantastic option if you're doing like garments or general sewing and you just want to stitch straight. Another little tip for the straight stitch machine or something that's a little bit more heavy duty, we have a thread called home deck, which is more of an upholstery thread, which is really strong. So for the case of this machine, I'm gonna thread it using a thicker thread just to kind of show you, obviously it doesn't make a difference when threading, but if you already sew and you're just kind of watching this as a reference point, this is a tip for you. Check out the home deck thread. So first step is we are going to put the spool onto our thread guide. So for this machine, it's on the back and there's a little bit of kind of a shelf where the thread goes. And then we're gonna have this kind of thread stand at the top where the thread's gonna go through. The reason why there's two sections here is because while you're sewing, you can actually be winding a bobbin at the same time. So that would be a reason why you'd want two. Or if you're doing something decorative, maybe you're trying something out of the box, you can actually do two threads at the top. It's a bit more artistic, but it is an option to do two threads as well. Then we're gonna start with our first thread guide, which is our little hook here. Now I'm going to stick it around this little roundabout circle up here. So the next step on this machine, which you would also see on most typical industrial machines, is we have some thread guides here that are holed, and then we have, this is called a tension disc. So you need to slip the thread through the middle of the discs. And you can change that with this knob to make it either more separated or closer together, which kind of, obviously, this adjusts your tension for your top thread. So it'll make it either more taut to your needle or less taut to your needle. So I'm gonna use my tweezers for this. I'm going to stick the thread through the first hole on the closest to me, and I'm gonna pull that through. Then it's a little strange, but you're actually gonna miss the middle hole. And you are going to wrap this around the outside like this, and we're gonna stick it in the last hole, making sure that this wraps. It's gonna wrap around the thread guide. Then we're gonna go down through this tension disc. Again, make sure that you're between these two metal discs, and you're just gonna pull that straight down from this disc. Now we're going straight down, and I'm gonna keep this taut because there are some things that have to click into place. So first thing is we're gonna go through here. The thread fits in this little hole that's cut out of the metal here as a guide. We're gonna bring this through the next tension disc. So this is a large tension disc. Again, you have a section where there's two discs together and it kind of has to sandwich through, and you'll hear that, like you can feel the tension when you stick it through. So this is sort of like a little roundabout circle. You stick it through the crack, follow that crack all the way up, and then you're going to make sure that it catches on this metal section, this little metal hook that's also connected to the tension disc here. We're gonna stick it down here, to catch under this metal hook. And then we're gonna also hook it onto this metal hook. So now we have 3 hooks in a row. We've connected it here. It's going down under this one. And then this just kind of holds it in place a little bit. It just kind of keeps it from falling off. And then our next guide will be to thread it through this top arm here. I'm gonna use my tweezers. Anytime you have like a smaller hole or something that's harder to focus on, it's just nice to kind of use something like tweezers, and you don't have to strain your eyes too much. I'm going to go from right to left, pull that through. And then we're gonna continue on with threading closer to the needle. So we're gonna pull this. It's tensioned pretty tight. We're gonna pull this down, and this is gonna start getting threaded by our needle now. There is a little metal bar here, which has a little bit of a, basically this has a cutout for your thread. It has a bit of a hidden lip underneath, which you can actually loop it under. And then this thread is gonna be perfectly through the guide now. I mentioned this in the last machine that I threaded, but most machines will have another metal loop just above the needle. So look for that on your machine. It should be obvious. It just kind of looks like a hook that has no real purpose other than you stick your thread on it, and it just kind of keeps it hugged to the needle. So this is a nice one not to forget. And then of course we're going to thread the needle. And again, I mentioned this on the last machine, the other Bernette Academy, where that machine had a front to back needle. But this machine is the perfect example where you do have to pay attention. This is a left to right needle. And one tip that I learned in school, because I used to sew on industrial machines for school, was when you have a machine like this that has it has the needle from left to right, usually there's something you can kind of tell by the eye of the needle, and we call that the bite of the needle. And when I was in school, we learned the bite goes to the right. So whenever you're reloading your needle on an industrial machine or this B08 straight stitch, make sure you're feeling your needle, and obviously you know that the hole is going to be left to right, but the bite will face the right. You just want to be careful about what kind of needle you're going to get. So on a standard industrial machine, the top of the needle might be cylindrical. On this one, it still has a flat side, but it would be the right side. So just be cautious that you're always buying the right kind of needles for your machine. So next we're going to talk about the bobbin. I guess you would consider this a side load in this case, but a front load bobbin would kind of be similar. So in order to pop this section off, we actually have a little sticker diagram that came when you got the machine, and you can leave this on, and that's probably what we'll do. We're just gonna pop off this metal disc on the top, and then there is a white opening on the side just to really open this area up so you have access to it. Our bobbin here is side loading. So we have a bit of a different situation than the drop-in bobbin. As you can see, this bobbin looks completely different, and it actually has its own case that actually gets removed from the machine as well. So you can actually see here there's a little tab that you can pull. So when you pull this tab, the bobbin and the case will both come out together. In this bobbin, they're metal because it's industrial. There are some mostly front loading bobbin cases that would be plastic. So again, this would have come with the machine, There are a lot of bobbins you can get pre-wound, so ours would be plastic. Just because this is metal doesn't necessarily mean that's the only bobbin option, but sometimes they are unique to the bobbin case. So again, just be careful you're using the right bobbin size for your machine as well. So there's a specific bobbin case that always comes out of the machine. Your bobbin goes into this case in a specific way as well. So check your manual and make sure you put this in the right way. In this scenario, I have the bobbin with the thread pulling through this little section here, and I'm gonna pull it taut, and it's actually gonna form into this little hole here on the side. And then this would be ready to put in, but I'm also gonna show you a little tip. So on your bobbin case, it always has these 2 screws. So there's 2 screws here. This actually adjusts the tension of your bobbin. The tension on your bobbin is usually controlled by dials on your machine. But because this one comes out of the machine, the bobbin case needs to be manually adjusted. So you can do that by tightening or loosening these screws. You can tell if the bobbin is a good tautness if it just kind of sits here. Sometimes you can pull it out a little bit, like if you kind of drop it like that, but it shouldn't fall right out when you have the thread up here, and it shouldn't be like really hard to move. So that kind of depends on your thread. Then when I pulled this out, the lever to pull it out here, this little tab, was facing the right. It has to be this way when you put it back in as well, otherwise it won't click into place. So you can leave a little tail out here because we're gonna have to pull it up with the needle thread, and I'm just gonna pop that in here. So as you can see, the little pull tab is facing the right, the bobbin clicked into place. We have a little tail out here, and just like any other machine, we're gonna pull the bobbin thread up with the hand dial on the side of the machine, just like in the last machine. So making the needle go down and up, and that's gonna pull the bobbin thread out as well. So now we have the top and the bobbin thread back out. You can close your bobbin area here, and you're ready to sew. And that is the basics of threading. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them below, especially if it's threading related. We're always happy to try to troubleshoot for you. In our next video, we're going to be focusing on servicing your machine. So if you've got a machine, maybe it's secondhand or you've got it hand-me-down from your granny, then we can show you how to service that as well. And make sure that you always have the proper tools to go with your machine and your project. Thank you guys for tuning in. We'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching, crafters and cosplayers. Want to keep the creativity going? Come join us on our brand new Discord community, where you can connect with fellow cosplayers, share your projects, and get inspired. We're also on TikTok and Instagram. Just look for WonderFil Specialty Threads everywhere. And if you'd like the latest tutorials, thread tips, and creative inspiration delivered straight to you, sign up for our newsletter. All the links are in the description below, so you can join the community wherever you like to hang out. Until next time, keep stitching, keep creating, and we'll see you in the next video.